With it being the year Treyarch returned to making Call of Duty, thank God, after years in the wilderness, Treyarch return, and with it being pretty certain now, thanks to leaks with that whole excuse me, T-shirt thing on GameStop and all that, it's pretty certain that Black Ops 4 will be the Call of Duty in 2018, and that got me thinking a lot about Black Ops 3, obviously their previous game, and what I thought about it. So over the weekend, this was actually before all the update thing came out with Infected and that and no map Redwood Snow and new sniper, I believe. I think it's a new sniper. This was actually all before that. I got all this gameplay and went back on the game a few days before that, just to sort of reminisce and remember what Black Ops 3 was like. And Black Ops 3 was a very love-hate relationship for me personally with Black Ops 3. I had a lot of fun on the game. I really did. It was a fun game, and it was definitely in the dark times of Call of Duty with all the futuristic jetpacks and everything. For me, it's 100% the best Call of Duty in that era. It's not got too much competition, admittedly, but it certainly was. However, I still had issues with it. I still had a lot of issues with it, namely around the setting. Even after Advanced Warfare, literally after the first week of Advanced Warfare, I was really against the whole jetpack thing. So the fact they came out and announced Black Ops 3, they said it was set in 2065 or whenever the bloody hell is. I have no idea. I think it's 2065 for the most part. I don't know if it changes or not. It just seems so out of place to take the Black Ops series after what the first game and the second game was far into the future. And this is what this video is really about. It's kind of like a review, essentially, just 3 years down the line. When it comes to reviews, when you make them straight away, they can be quite, they might not consider everything. This game's nearly been out for 3 years now, and I feel like at this point, there's no excuses for not really knowing how you rate this game in this sense. So I decided I'd make a video on it about really summing up what I thought Black Ops 3 was like. We're going to go through campaign, we're going to go through multiplayer, we're going to go through zombies, I'm going to have a few points on all of them, and ultimately decide whether this game how good this game was in the end, because ultimately I do think it should be remembered as a good game, but there certainly were issues as we'll get onto. So without any further ado, we're going to jump straight in and we're going to start with the campaign. Now I don't really want to spend too much on this, for one thing. Generally these days, Call of Duty campaigns aren't considered massively big deal. Most of the player base, I imagine, don't really care about it. It's not going to be the thing that sells the game for most people, and most people just go for the multiplayer or the zombies, especially in a Treyarch game case. Zombies will always be a massive pull. And also, and you'll see probably why, generally I don't want to spend too much time on it. I don't really like it so much. Now, if I was to use one word, if I was to think of one word to sum up the Black Ops 3 campaign, it would be clusterfuck, an absolute clusterfuck. I really didn't understand it at the time, and I had to do a lot of reading to even get a gathering of what they were trying to say. Now, to sum up the premise as simply as I possibly can, the whole it seems to take you around this idea of machine and people and machinery and technology sort of merging together, and almost technology overtaking the human, as in they have all these chips and things, the things that give them the exo abilities and the specialists, whatever they were called in the campaign. And that's pretty much the summary of it, I would say. For the most part, you just shoot either people or you shoot robots. Now, the reason I say clusterfuck is the best way of describing this is, like I say, it was so unnecessarily confusing for a Call of Duty campaign. Now, the greatest campaigns have all been relatively easy to follow. Even Black Ops, which Black Ops did have a sense of intrigue to it. You had all these the numbers, Mason. What do they mean? All that crap. And generally, at the time, first time you're going through that, it's very much, what the hell's going on here? And Treyarch seems to have a knack of having intricate storylines. You can look at zombies for that. But with Black Ops 3, it just really did not work in any way. It was too much for me, and it just didn't seem to make sense. Now, I'm sure it does make sense. I'm sure So people who do storytelling, they are much more like have much bigger right in terms of knowing how stories work than I do. I don't think I've really said that word very well. There are people better than me at Treyarch who plan these stories than me and have a better idea than me. Obviously, that's what I'm trying to get at. But it just, I'm sure it makes sense. But after lots of reading and lots of paying attention to multiple different things and probably having to play through it again. For me personally, I played through it once and I didn't really understand it. I didn't like it. I played it to the end just to get to the end and get like the trophies and whatnot, just to say I finished it. But I just did not like it at all, and I found it far too complicated and very linear. As Call of Duty campaigns go, it was incredibly linear. I mean, I can't really remember any mission that wasn't just shoot a load of robots, occasionally shoot some soldiers, and then success. Obviously, you've got that one mission which pretty much summed up how ridiculous it was, where you're in the frozen forest and you're shooting. I think you're in World War II at one point. You've got the zombies. Zombies, where the fuck are they came from in a campaign? Why are they there? I just feel like at that point Treyarch were like, oh, let's just take the piss, because that was just bizarre. And then you got that whole train go boom bollocks, which I don't have here. I literally just played for a bit of the first mission to get some gameplay. I wasn't going to touch the rest of it. I really could not be asked with it. And it just didn't make any sense. Then you got the characters. For one thing, the character you play as is called Player. I know there was customization, a bit of it anyway, but instantly you're going to struggle to like that character. It's not like Soap. It's not like Roach. It's not like even Mason in Black Ops previously. By instantly going, okay, he's going to be called Player, you're instantly not really helping yourself in terms of getting into the characters. Hendrix was alright, I suppose, but the rest of them I could not give a flying shit about them. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person. The characters really weren't that likeable. Now, I could say the setting had a lot to do with this, and I think it partially does. However, in fairness to Infinite Warfare obviously gets a lot of abuse, and rightly so. Wrong game, wrong time, wrong period. Multiplayer was shite, I think. I didn't really play enough of it to really say that. I should probably, I don't know. I wasn't going to play much of it. But the one thing they got spot on, and I'll argue this for them, argue this for their case at least. Campaign was actually really good. The Infinite Warfare campaign was really good, and if it was any other game, a game in a series that belongs in space, it would probably get a lot of praise. But it's obviously overshadowed by the fact no one wanted a futuristic game, no one wanted Call of Duty to go to space, and then again, as I said earlier, campaigns don't really have a massive influence on Call of Duty players and whether they want the game or not. The influence comes from multiplayer, so if the multiplayer is not liked particularly, then you're a bit screwed. But the campaign on Infinite Warfare was brilliant, in my opinion. It was well done, the characters were likeable, the story was good, missions were quite fun. Black Ops 3, there's none of that. It's a poor game. One very well will say, I'll give Treyarch the benefit of the doubt is, for me, the campaign shows quite a bit that I don't actually think they really wanted to do this, and Activision were just like, no, we've done the research, we know what we're talking about, everyone's going to love Titanfall games. Everyone's buying Titanfall, we've got to go to the future, we've got to have jetpacks, and Treyarch were just like, oh, for fuck's sake, okay. Because the story, it doesn't even link to Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, apart from one reference at the end where you got like Nova 6 gas, and I'm pretty sure Raul Menendez, the villain in Black Ops 2, gets a mention at some point. But I can't even remember if I'm making that up or not. How much the campaign sticks in my head, I can't really remember. And frankly, it was a mess, and I just don't think they really wanted to do this. I think they were like, okay, we've got to go to the future, we're being told to. Activision are quite sure on this, we've got to try and think of a story, and this was the best they could do. However, I don't really think it was. But that pretty much sums up the campaign for me. No one massively cares about the campaign. I, for one, always like a good campaign. It doesn't define the game for me, I suppose, because multiplayer ultimately and zombies are the things I'm going to play for the year throughout. But it's always nice to have a good campaign, and Black Ops 3 had, in my opinion, a very poor campaign. And I'd probably only say it was as low as Ghost. However, I can't really remember the Ghost campaign, and I really need to play through that again. And I probably will play through Ghost again because, you know, it's the game I hate the most. But people seem to be liking it now for some reason. But ultimately, Black Ops 3's campaign was poor at best, in my opinion. Now we move on to the thing that everybody probably mainly cares about, and that's multiplayer. Obviously, multiplayer is a big selling point to a Call of Duty. It's the main reason everyone plays it. It's the main mode for many. And ultimately, if you have a good multiplayer, you have a good game. Now, Black Ops 3, I don't know where I stand on the multiplayer, and this is probably the most difficult area for me to judge, because ultimately, on occasions, it was a very fun game, and I do generally still have enjoyment. When I went back to play it a few days ago, I actually enjoyed playing it to the extent I might be playing it more, and now they've added Infected, which I'm not covering in this video in much detail, but I will be playing Infected and uploading it at some point, I imagine. I will be playing it more, and it was generally a fun game, but the fact is I'm only first prestige on this, and you compare that to like you can compare that to Black Ops 2 and Black Ops 1, where I was relatively high. I can't remember off the top of my head on either of them, but I was at least 6th prestige or 7th prestige at minimum on Black Ops, and then I think I was 10th on Black Ops 2 at least. Did I get to Master Prestige? I can't remember. Anyway, the point is, I'm only first prestige on here. That says a lot for me, I would say. And there were a lot of problems with it. There were a lot of problems with the multiplayer, in my opinion. Namely, one, the jumping around, which, you know, we can only really blame, as I said, Activision Treyarch, but not necessarily Treyarch, because, like I say, I do have a theory that they weren't particularly wanting to do this. They just had to. So Activision, for wanting the futuristic setting, fucking stupid decision, and I'll never let that drop. But ultimately, it's people's playing styles with the jumping around and the jetpacks and the wall running and all that shit. People were doing it every other second, and it just infuriated me in the end. And I know for a fact I'm not the only person in the world that was infuriated by the way people played these games. People did it in Advanced Warfare. I was fed up with it after a week. So I wasn't particularly impressed when I had to put up with it in the next Call of Duty. Ultimately, it was fun enough to get over it. And when I went back a few days ago, like I said, it was a fun experience, and there weren't as many, but even watching this gameplay back, there were quite a few people jumping around unnecessarily. It's just unnecessary, I can't speak. That, in most cases, you don't need to be doing that. You don't need to be a bloody frog, do you? And that ultimately did kill the multiplayer quite a bit for me, which was a shame. If people just, you know, had restraint on pressing that bloody button to thrust jump and all that shite, then maybe it would have been a much better game. One thing they added that was good, we'll go to something that I think was good in the end. Specialists, which had potential to be incredibly OP. Ones like Rejack, I think it was called, were OP originally when the game came out. You could respawn where you died and just kill the poor guy that just worked so hard to kill you. I don't know, that was infuriating. I remember that at the time. But ultimately, they were well balanced, and I remember when the multiplayer trailer came out and you saw the Scythe, which I'm using, which is the machine gun in the arms, and people were like, that's gotta be OP, you can't be having that, you can't have a fucking machine gun, whatever. You can't have basically a death machine in your bloody arm, surely that's game breaking. But the way they did it was actually really well. You know, everyone has the option of using specialists, and they all they're all similarly good. They all have their own uses and purposes, and you can only use them once or twice a game, and I think actually they were really good, and so much so Infinite Warfare essentially copied them and put a new name on it, which was pointless. What's the point in copying something when it's clear you're copying it and then renaming it? What is the point? Anyway, it was a good addition. We do have to talk about supply drops now. Yay, who doesn't like supply drops? Sarcasm, by the way. Black Ops 3 was particularly awful. I'll go as far as say cancerous, because it was harder to earn guns. You couldn't earn guns other than supply drops, and obviously to do that in game is by getting crypto keys, which, I mean, 30 a pop for a rare supply drop. It was quite difficult, and that was annoying. That was you know, supply drops. Black Ops 3 had the worst supply drop system in my opinion. I can't actually remember the Advanced Warfare one. That might have been worse. But Modern Warfare Remastered, Infinite Warfare, I believe, and World War Two have done supply drops in a way that don't actually bother me too much, and they're inevitably going to do it in the future. And I just really hope they keep to that system, because that system actually works all right. The final point I'd like to make when it comes to multiplayer, and this is actually something I will go into later when talking about zombies, as it kind of affects the game as a whole. And the ultimate point that does bring it back a little bit, so far I've been quite negative on that really. I've only said I've found it relatively fun, and then I've gone to bash a few things. The reason why Black Ops 3 was actually so playable, and in the end, the way I look at it, the way I describe it, was the best it possibly could be in terms of futuristic setting. Apart from supply drops, obviously there was a better supply drop system, but in terms of gameplay and the way the game worked, what's the fact? Treyarch have often shown themselves to be the absolute goats of Call of Duty development now. It used to be Infinity Ward in my opinion, but it changed a few years ago now really to Treyarch, and they were brilliant with keeping the game fresh, keeping the game updated. Obviously, like I said, supply drops were shit ultimately, but they continued to add more to it. I mean, some might say that's a negative because you've got more to go through to get shit. But ultimately, they kept the game up. They kept the game fresh. They kept the game updated. They added. They still do. I mean, literally, the game it's been out for 2.5 years roughly now. This is its 3rd year, and yet, as much as they might be planning to tease the next game, the fact is they are still updating the game. The patch for Infected and for the new map was 2 GB, and to have that for a 3-year-old game is brilliant. Last month with Valentine's Day, they added the camo again. They still had double XP. They still had Nuketown 24/7 over the weekend. And as much as you could say they've been forced to do that over multiple years, simply because people are still playing Black Ops 3, people don't particularly. Well, they certainly didn't want to play Infinite Warfare too much. I imagine the majority of people were either on Black Ops 3 or on Modern Warfare Remastered. World War 2, as much as it's back to boots on the ground, and generally, in my opinion, it's an alright game. It's a good game. There's a lot wrong with it, and it's a bit too linear for me in terms of it's actually the multiplayer is actually quite small when I think about it. But it's not captivating their audience at all, particularly World War 2. So Black Ops 3 still has people playing it. But their constant updates and constantly keeping it fresh and keeping it playable is always a good thing. And I think generally Modern Warfare Remastered did it quite well as well, with the events and additional game modes. And as much as people hated it at the time, the addition of supply drops with new weapons and weapons you could earn without having to pay for them was a brilliant idea. And Treyarch very much epitomised that idea of community feedback and giving back to the community, which is something, especially in a Call of Duty and Activision sort of way, is, I imagine, fairly appreciated, because it comes as a bit of a shock these days. And ultimately, for me, that's one of the many reasons this game still always gets played, and it's one of the main reasons I still played it, even back then when I didn't really want to. There was a lot of me conflicted. To be honest, I'm shocked I even I'm relatively close to level 55 on the first procedure. I'm shocked I even did that, and this reason is a big reason. You can't help but love Treyarch. You really can't. For what they do, as much as you might disagree with their game, you might disagree with a lot of things about their game. Ultimately, you've got to say they're a brilliant developer for things like that and adding things constantly, and keeping the game fresh. And that was a big sticking point for me and a lot of people, and the reason people still play it. I imagine lots of people are playing Black Ops 3 right now, probably more than World War 2. I don't imagine Fortnite's numbers are dropping too much, because Fortnite's a little bit it's everywhere in it, let's just say it that way. But Black Ops 3's probably got more players than World War 2 at this moment in time, and that is because Treyarch RG are, like I say, the goats of it. They're goats of development, honestly. And it's something I'm going to talk about more in the zombies section, because obviously zombies is massively affected in that. And ultimately, I think that's about it for multiplayer. It was relatively well balanced as well, apart from the Brecci. The Brecci was a bit of a pain, but there's always one gun. There's always one gun in a Call of Duty game that's going to be used by noobs and used by complete wankers who have no regard for everyone else. you know, but to me, I think the Brecci had less of an impact than those stupid shotguns in World War Two that have the incendiary bullets or whatever they're fucking called. The thing was with the fire, and so to me it wasn't much of an issue, and generally it was all right. Like I said, I had issues with it, but it was playable, and like I said, in terms of the fact it's set in such a futuristic time, it's probably the best it could have been. And yeah, that's as much as I've got on multiplayer. We're now going to move on to the final bit, and the bit I'm personally most looking forward to talking about. Not talking to zombies, am I? Talking about, and that is zombies. Of course, it's zombies. I struggle with anyone who says zombies isn't isn't good. I can't see how you cannot like zombies, especially Treyarch zombies specifically. Maybe Exo Zombies was a bit shit, wasn't it? Let's be honest. But ultimately, Treyarch zombies is fantastic, and it's again. I've listened back to this video. I've generally said more. It sounded more negative than positive. This is where all the positivity comes out for me. Zombies was where it was at. And generally across the whole year and across 2 years, Zombies Chronicles, we'll get into that in a minute. Like I said, in terms of keeping the game updated, I said I'd go more into detail on that. Zombies, that'd be what I'm talking about. For a year and a half to 2 years, Black Ops 3 actively kept me engaged in zombies, and I think I'm 7th prestige in zombies compared to 1st prestige on multiplayer, and generally the levelling up's a bit harder because obviously the games are longer. For the most part anyway, unless you're shit. But zombies was where it was at for me, and this isn't even from someone who likes the story too much. I know a lot of people are very interested in the Easter eggs and things like that, and they're very intricate and well set out and brilliantly done. But I'm not an Easter egg hunter. I let other YouTubers, the YouTubers do it, the zombie YouTube community, I suppose you can call them. And I just let others work that out, and then I follow it. I watch live streams, I watch videos. I do follow it, but I just don't strive to do it myself. I'm not too bothered. I simply play zombies for the fun of it, and to get high rounds, and just kill zombies. Just kill zombies. There's nothing better than just killing zombies. And like I said, for me, probably Black Ops 3 Zombies, the whole run of it was probably the best they've done, in my opinion. I know people will probably disagree with that somewhere. People always like the classics, and don't get me wrong, I love the classics. I love all the Treyarch Zombies sort of years. Is that the right way? Content. I like the zombies content in pretty much every Treyarch game they've done. We start with Shadows of Evil, which I didn't actually, like I say, as someone that's not an Easter egg person, I think this is where this generally comes from. Shadows didn't connect with it massively. It's a massive map, and I do feel like it's very story intricate. It's very story. I don't know the word, but I get what I mean. I'm not sure if you get what I mean. It's very much based around the story of it and solving the Easter egg, and it was, like I say, it was massive. It just didn't connect with me. For the most part, I was playing The Giant, which was Derice remastered, and even though it was a remastered map, I was playing it so much right up until the release of this map, of course, and the first DLC to Eisendrache, which was probably my favourite out of all of them. Now I think about it, one of the best zombies maps ever, really, actually. Hence why you're seeing gameplay of it with the bows and all that. I played this map to death. I played all of the maps to death, and then you have Zetsubo. You always have to have one Shi No Numa, don't you, in each game? Zetsubo was alright. It was actually, I think I'd probably put it above Shi No Numa personally. But it's just something about swamp maps, man. They're just not as good, are they? But it was, I wouldn't say it was, I'm not saying it was bad, by the way. I'm just saying it wasn't the best. It was still quite fun, and I did enjoy playing it. I enjoyed the weapon as well. The Solidify, it was like Solidify, weren't it, from Die Rise, I think, in Black Ops 2. And then we had Gorod Krovi, again, another map. At the time I was like, this is perfect. You got dragons, fucking dragons. And ultimately, I love. Why do I keep saying ultimately? It's not ultimately, is it? Gorod Krovi was a brilliant map for me. I had the Raygun Mark III and all that. PPSH, which do love. You gotta love a PPSH. And then obviously it ended with Revelations, which I know sort of split people at the time when the Easter egg was found out. I, for one, as well, and you had the cutscene and sort of the ending. At the time, everyone was very disappointed and thought it was a bit of a letdown. But when you look back at it throughout the years, Treyarch always know what to do in terms of moving on, in terms of story. I'm sure they're going to move on from it, and we're going to find, I suppose, reasoning for that cutscene and for that ending in Revelations. But ultimately, as much as essentially it was just a mishmash of all everyone's favourites, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing it. I played it a lot. Some said it's not really a new map, it's just shoving old maps together, which, you know, I suppose is technically right, but for nostalgia, that was enough for me. And and then what did they go and do? You know, 6 months from Infinite Warfare's release, I think. What comes out? Zombie Chronicles. They tipped it off. I was already relatively happy playing the Eisendrache, Gorod, the Giant, and Revelations. I was happy enough with those 4. They go and add 8 remastered maps, and for a Zombies fan, that was just a dream come true. I love the fact that they took time out of they're developing their new game to do that, first of all. And, you know, it just reignited the game again. And like I said in the multiplayer section, even after Infinite Warfare came out, Modern Warfare Remastered came out, even now after World War II came out, they're still updating the game and giving more. And that they gave a whole DLC pack, which never happened before, and it possibly won't ever happen again. To have that happen was brilliant, and I know that probably, again, they might have been pushed to do it because Activision was shitting themselves about Modern Warfare, not Modern Warfare, Infinite Warfare's poor reaction, and you know, but if they were, it was one of the best decisions Activision made last year, because that got them a lot more money. If you hear squeaks, by the way, it's my chair, it's not anything else. And yeah, it was just from this, like I say, it was perfect fan service, and again, people were a little bit outraged by Gobblegums being in them, which I haven't even mentioned, by the way. Gobblegums were added, which were a good addition. I keep thinking there's no way they can really, you know, make it any better. They'll just be adding shit for the sake of it, but they go and add Gobblegums, and it generally were useful. But going back to what I was on about, people had the problem with that, but at the end of the day, you could just ignore the Gobblegum machines. You didn't have to. And the fact they added, you know, they didn't add Mob of the Dead and the Call of the Dead, which are 2 maps I'd love to see remastered, and I think Mob of the Dead probably will happen in this year's game. In fact, I'm sure of it, because it's so loved, and they know it's loved, and they consider it important still. So I'm really, I was, Black Ops 3 Zombies was, for me, the best zombies year for zombies content. Especially in a time where we're getting all these fucking fakes now. We got Exo Zombies, we got Infinite Warfare's shite. I didn't play much of it. I can't really give a comment on it. And then you got World War II, which was okay. The Final Reich was an okay map, but it didn't persuade me to get the DLC, get the season pass. I'm not going to buy the DLC on that game. I don't feel like I'll play it enough. So to have this out, and this is where I die here. Yeah, I go down here. The way I die in this game is particularly embarrassing, but I don't know if I'll show you that or not. But yeah, ultimately it was this kept the game alive for me in many ways. Zombies kept the game alive. It kept me going on it. I was playing Zombies so much for hours. Generally in the past I've only ever had enough in me for two games at most in a row, simply because, you know, you get a bit bummed out, don't you, when you die in Zombies. It's a bit like, I can't really be asked to go through all that again. But with Black Ops 3 I kept playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it, and I really, like, I was properly addicted to it at some points. And like I say, this isn't even for story. This isn't, me going on for 24 hours trying to find Easter egg clues and shit. This was just me playing to get a high round, or just playing for fun, essentially. So for me, overall, Zombies was the main puller for me, and I imagine there's quite a few people that actually agree with that. But yeah, we're going to conclude. The title of this video is how should Black Ops 3 be remembered, and I think ultimately it'll be remembered as a good game. I think by most people. By the way, I didn't get more perks and things because I just thought I had enough gameplay and I'll just go until I die. For people possibly questioning that. Ultimately, Black Ops 3, yeah, it was infuriating, and the people were multiplayer. Jesus, I couldn't handle it sometimes, and the campaign was poorly done in my opinion. Obviously, some people might have liked it, but there were still good things, and in the multiplayer, not the campaign. I'm not going to give a good argument for the campaign. And then there was zombies. Zombies kept it alive, and for me personally, this ultimately is my opinion. It was kept alive by zombies for me. And generally for other people, like I say, the fact they constantly updated it kept the game fresh, and that keeps people playing it at the end of the day. And it can't be a coincidence. I mean, it can't just be, oh, people are just fucking about. The fact is, people are still playing Black Ops 3 2.5 years down the line, and as much as you could say that's down to circumstance and people not liking the newer games, but ultimately this game still has to be good for people to want to play it, and people want to play it. So as for how should Black Ops 3 be remembered, I would certainly say it should class as good. It's certainly not up there for me in terms of top 3, top 5 or whatever Call of Duty games. It's probably closer to, how many have there been now? Like 10, 11. That's probably closer to the bottom than it is to top. Now I think, yeah, it is. It definitely is. But ultimately, it was a good game, and I think it should be, like I say, it should be remembered as a good game. And Treyarch only hopes it feels like at the moment, so we can't really bash them, can we? Hopefully, Black Ops 4 will be good. Hopefully, it won't be in the future. It won't have jetpacks. I can't see that happening. I'm pretty sure Activision have already said we're going to stay away from the futuristic setting for a little while. So if Black Ops 4's good, let me know what you think. What did you like about Black Ops 3? Did you like Black Ops 3? Was it a good game to you? Is it up there for you? Is it right up there with the big boys like Modern Warfare 2 and all that? Black Ops 2? Or did you not enjoy it? Did you find it tedious as well sometimes? Are you in the same boat? Are you someone that, had enjoyment but certainly had issues with the game? And ultimately, how do you think it should, be remembered, essentially? And are you looking forward to Treyarch having it control again? I certainly am, and I have full trust in them. I might make a video on what they might do before Black Ops 4 is announced and things like that. What they could do, what they might do. I will be playing I'll be live comming essentially some Infected, because Infected was my shit in Modern Warfare 3. I loved Infected. So yeah, if you enjoyed, like the video, stick around, subscribe, that'd be great. Share it. It's quite difficult getting out. You got to start somewhere, don't you? So, plug, shameless plug. And yeah, that'll wrap this video up. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.